So obviously last week had a bit of an issue, but the cabinet is all stood up. Thanks again, Dan. Really appreciate the help on such short notice. So now I can carry on working on it. But today I'm getting focused on the high chair. I really want to complete that this week. That is my goal for the week. I'm also going to do a bit of an update on my main YouTube channel, considering the changes I made a few months back. I'll do a quick recap for everyone who didn't catch that. And I also want to dive into how it's affected the channel from a revenue perspective. And the results may shock. No, actually they won't. They're pretty much exactly what you would have expected to happen. The reason I'm focusing on revenue is at the beginning of this year, I set out a plan for where I want this business to go. And ideally, YouTube is the direction I want it to head in. I eventually want to not have to rely on custom commissions to keep the business profitable and for YouTube to be the priority. And the TLDR is the changes I made a few months back have set me back from a revenue perspective with YouTube about 8 years. For the past year, I've had this growing concern that the content that I'm making now doesn't coincide with the content that's doing well on the channel. The theory is that if you have content that's doing well, old content, and the topics that you're talking about are different to what you're making now, then every time you release new content now, YouTube is going to promote your old content. So the people now, when they come to your new content, get shown old content and go, well, this isn't what I want. So the fix for this is a drastic one where you unlist all of that old content. I am expecting my views and subscriber count and obviously my income to just tank. I literally took my top 5 or 6 videos and I think one of them is still relevant. The rest have all been unlisted. So my views and subscribers, they're just gonna tank. But in the case of this video that I watched yesterday of someone else who had a similar scenario, it took a couple months and then their views didn't go back to what they were, but there were a couple of metrics like viewers staying on their channel. Those sort of metrics increase, and those are the building blocks. Those are the ones that you want to get right at the start, because then that will help grow your channel in the right direction. So a risky decision, yes, but in my opinion, a necessary decision. And if we take a look at the analytics for the channel, you can really see how it's affected it. So we're looking here at the views for the last year, and you can see in the green, this is the concrete countertop. In August, that's when I turned it off, which is here. You can see how the green views have just tanked. Now, what's interesting about this graph is this doesn't show the full extent of that concrete countertop video, because this blue line here, which is the steam bending video, is tracking quite well. So if I show just total views, here in August again, where it's the concrete countertop video is turned off, there's just a slow drop. However, if we go and look at the lifetime of the channel, here you can see what a big difference that was. So in 2016, that's when everything kicked off. That's when the concrete countertop video went, I don't want to use the term viral because I don't think it was viral, but it really took off. And you can see how for years, that was the only channel that really worked. But then moving into 2020, I had these other videos that started doing well as well. And this I'll come back to this in a second because that's important. But then you can see in 2020, nothing was working. Suddenly everything stopped working. My concrete countertop video just lost its place as being the dominant for that niche. And all of my other videos stopped doing well as well. I was still putting out occasional content, but it just felt like nothing was working. Everything was just in decline. So if I show just total views, you can see here how it's just a slow death all the way to August of 23, which is over here. And then there's a little dip when the concrete countertop video comes down. So even though that video that was performing so well for so many years was turned off in August, it had actually already started this decline. And then if we come over to the revenue analytics, we can see over the last year, it's dropped down from, this is monthly, from 422 down to where I am now, which is just below the threshold, so just below 100. And you can see in August, when I turned off that concrete countertop video, there was a small dip. It wasn't massive, but there was a slight dip. But now again, if we zoom out and we look at it for the lifetime of the channel, you can see here now how from a financial perspective, all those other videos that were doing well with views in 2020 didn't even feature when it came to revenue. They were bringing in very little. It was still just the concrete countertop video that was bringing in the money. If I select all the videos, you'll notice how the graph doesn't change that much because it's all around that concrete countertop. But again, if we look at the channel as a whole, you can see that revenue increasing and then decreasing on its way down to where are we? August here, where I turned off the video, and in the grand scheme of things, very little has happened. So this slow decline that's been happening since 2020, this is what's really prompted this move. It's just something had to change. That trend line is just going to continue unless I do something. And it's a tricky one. As a business owner, the money is very important because that keeps the business afloat. But I also do respect the creativity and the art of it because that's what drew me in the first place. And I also want to keep in mind that there are a lot of people out there still trying to get to the point where they are making money from YouTube. But to have a drop where in March of 2020, I did over 2,500. That I remember that month because I was telling people that a third of my income at the time with my full-time job, a third of my monthly income was coming from YouTube, which was was amazing. So I've seen what it can be. You can get to that. So to go from that all the way down to now where I'm not making money on YouTube because I'm not making enough. Again, all of this is said, something's got to change. Righto, it's Friday morning. Change of pace today. The client for the high chair contacted me last night and said that they aren't actually going to be in town for the next 2 weeks. So there's absolutely no rush for me to finish, which is cool. So I'm actually going to put this on hold for now, just so I can continue on this reptile enclosure. This build has taken far longer than I wanted. I appreciate that these things can go over time, and a lot of the time they will, but I feel like I've seriously missed the mark on this one. We've talked about this in previous episodes, the way working 3 half days a week is not great. But because I didn't tell the client that in the beginning, not because I was trying to be deceitful or anything, I just didn't think of it. This is now taking a really long time, and I'm starting to really feel bad about this being in the workshop for so long. I constantly have this image in my head of an email coming through that just says what the bleep is going on with my build? Can you please deliver? I've waited long enough, etc., etc. And he's a cool guy. He's been so supportive, and as a first client, he's been one of the best I think you could ask for. But I am worried that I'm just starting to lean into that a bit too much. I'm taking the piss, and I'm doing the best I can, but he's paying me. I've got to do better. Another reason the YouTube revenue is so important is if we look at the actual commissions that I'm doing, I've been documenting them. I'm not exactly profitable at this stage. I mean, I am, but I'm not. It's certainly not a living amount. So with the reptile enclosure, I'm sitting at negative 140 at the moment. So my expenses are above the deposit that was given because I've messed up a bit on that quote. Is what it is, but there is another $1,650 coming in as the final payment. So I will be in the green on that, but at this stage I'm behind. The earn, that was a 442 profit. And keep in mind, when I'm saying profit, I'm not talking about my time. So I'm just talking about expenses versus income. So I haven't tallied how much time I spent on the earn, but that 442 is my time. So technically, I might still not be profitable because I spent more than $442 worth of time on that. I did a thicknessing job for $50, and the high chair that I'm working on, At the moment I'm 129 up, and I'll be getting another 145. So again, that will be an income, but my time spent on that will probably outweigh that anyway. So in terms of paying for my time, I live next to the airport, and the Air Force are running drills today, so there are jets flying over all the time. But bottom line is, this work that I'm getting is not paying for the business at this stage. So if I throw some YouTube income into that, which I've done in the past, that will make me more profitable. And because that's almost passive, or I guess you could even say additional income, because the commission is where the money's coming from, the YouTube video is extra. From that perspective, it will really, really help the business financially.